What I will be presenting on today is none other than the humble tomato, and specifically the tomato plant and how to grow one. I'm going to assume that none of you guys have ever had any interest in growing a tomato. I don't blame you. That's your loss, but I'm not here to persuade. I will inform you how to have success if you choose to grow a tomato, though. That being said, I find personally that the real reward in it is just getting out in nature. It's a breath of fresh life in the springtime, and it makes that whole spring summer season a lot more exciting. And for the most part, it's as simple as digging a hole and planting a plant. But there are some intricacies that make it a little bit more difficult, especially being here in the southeast. And I will get into those, starting with the two types of tomatoes that you should know about. There are a bunch of variety of tomatoes, but they all fall under one of two categories. There are determinate and there are indeterminate tomatoes. And I quote from the Alabama Cooperative Extension System publication ANR 302, a direct quote. They say tomato plants will either grow to a set height, flower, and bear fruit for a few weeks, called determinate, or they'll continue to grow, flower, and bear fruit all season long, called indeterminate. That's the end of that quote. And what this pretty much means is that the determinate grows a very large harvest for a short session, and they're more bush-like in nature, which is great for people who are looking to get into canning and preserving for the winter, while indeterminate tomatoes grow more vine-like throughout the whole growing season, which in North Carolina can extend well into the fall. And that's good for if you want to go out into your yard and pick a tomato for a sandwich on a summer day. My best advice is to go down to your local garden center and just take a look at all the tags and see the pros and cons of each one. But on the tags, each one will say if it's determinate or indeterminate. So just remember what I said about the two. Anyway, here's on to some tips for the actual planting of tomatoes. Tomato plants have very large root systems. Like I said, they are kind of a vine, and you'll notice if you plant them that if you get water on the bottom, they'll actually start to grow roots on the stem. But with that, North Carolina has a lot of clay, which they don't tend to like. So if you want to plant in the ground, you have to till the soil really well, break up all that clay, and use perlite. And the same goes in pots too to prevent root rot. But you want to mix in some potting soil as well. In terms of what time of year to plant, I found an old head quote, honestly, from like the 1900s. So in the March 15th, 1906 version of the Southern Cultivator, the editor claims that seeds should be sown in February and plants should be transplanted in April, which works out because in our hardiness zone in Charlotte, North Carolina, the last frost date is April 15th, which is when you don't have to worry about frost anymore. And this is confirmed by Angela Watson's quote that says the daily temperature should consistently be around 75 degrees. She posted in the May 2021 post in Best Reviews of San Francisco, but she pretty much said that the temperature should be consistently 75 degrees, and overnight temperatures should ideally not fall below 55 degrees. Now, here in North Carolina, February through April, it's not uncommon to have temperatures in the 80s and then temperatures in the 30s overnight, which makes it a little difficult. I find you can get away with planting in March a little bit before the last frost date, but you have to keep an eye on that weather and you have to cover your plants if there's a frost, like anything into the 30s really. And you also kind of have to supplement with a grow light because the days are still a little bit short this time of year, or the March through April time of year. On that, we're going to move on to the last and probably most important thing, pests and insects. This is usually what ends my growing season. It's not the weather that ends it, it's the pests and the fungus, unfortunately. But I will touch on the main killer down here in the southeast with our humidity is blight, which is a fungus that just spreads like crazy through moisture in the air. There are some other insects and diseases too you should know about, like blossom end rot and tomato hornworm, which is actually like a caterpillar. Those things are creepy. And what I find out is that pruning is the key for a lot of these. Maybe not the hornworms, but a lot of pests and insects actually come up from the soil when you water them. So you want to prune them high, that way they don't splash onto the leaves. And interestingly enough, there was a study by the Persian Gulf University from their Notulae Scientia Biologicae. They performed a study on pruning techniques that stated there are some evidences that pruning not only improves fruit quality, but increases plant health against pest and disease. It was a huge study. It actually went more in depth than just that. It went into like different pruning techniques, comparing it to like more commercial applications, such as like comparing fruit sizes, fruit yields, and stuff, more than what a recreational gardener would need to know. But it pretty much confirms that pruning helps against pests and diseases. So, in conclusion, we pretty much went over the two main types of tomatoes you should know about and picking which one's best for you, how to plant it, how to prune it, and the types of pests and diseases you should know about. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Have a good one.